Hi, welcome to the Reaction Radar. What if I told you the monster behind one of the most disturbing crimes in America today was under Joe Biden's watch? We're exposing a gut-wrenching case that will leave you wondering about Biden's border policy. Without any further ado, let's jump into this.
Reaction. Deputy White House Chief of Staff for Policy, Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller. Look, we're going to be dealing with this for decades to come. It doesn't remove every known terrorist that we don't know where they are in the country that they allowed in, or the cartel members, or the gang members, or the murderers, or the rapists, or the other violent criminals, or the drug dealers. But we stopped the influx of illegals. Now we're in the process of trying to find all the people that Biden let in and get rid of them. That's a Herculean task.
Yes, it's a mammoth task. As President Trump has said, Biden flooded this country with millions and millions of illegal aliens, many of them rapists, murderers, gang members, terrorists, human smugglers, child traffickers, and every kind of criminal and thug that you can imagine on planet Earth. But let's begin by celebrating the incredible news that President Trump, as you mentioned, Sean, has achieved the most secure border with the lowest level of illegal crossings in U.S. history. Sean, I've been studying and following and working on this issue for a long time. There is no nation anywhere on planet Earth that has achieved such a rapid success on its border in any time period as President Trump has achieved here in the United States. Going nearly overnight from an open border to a sealed border surely ranks as one of the great achievements in the history of domestic policy and national security. Now, you mentioned another breaking news story tonight, Sean. The Department of Justice has indicted the illegal alien terrorist from Maryland, the so-called Maryland man, who is actually a foreign terrorist from El Salvador, to make him face justice for his monstrous crimes against humanity. Another huge win for the Trump administration. Thanks to weeks of investigative work, this illegal alien monster is going to be held accountable for his terrible crimes against women and children. And then guess what, Sean?
So how do you guys feel about this? It's amazing. Because when Kilmar was deported back to El Salvador, the Democrats were saying, oh, they need due process, they need due process. Now that they brought him back for the court proceeding, for the due process, now they're like, oh, well, they're trying to do cover up, they're trying to do this, they're trying to do that. Now, another thing you got to think about, and this is just a thought process, but the way it was explained to me is you have the body of the law and the spirit of the law, right? Again, a couple of my police friends have been explaining this to me. I've got buddies all over the place, okay? So the way it was explained to me is you have the body of the law. So the body of the law says that apple will be delicious if it's red. The spirit of the law says, well, the apple really doesn't have to be red in order for it to be delicious, right? So with that being said, what I believe was the officers gave Kilmar a break when they stopped him that first time, even though they knew what was going on and everything, they give him a break. Now, it's my belief and my opinion, I would love to hear what you guys have to say, is that because of everything that's going on, and they're like, oh, well, if there was no case, the police wasn't wrong, or if they had this, they would have done that. Now, in my opinion, I feel like they're forcing the police hand to act. So which means if the police had the ability and authority to give you a break, now they will probably not, because now it's falling back on them to say, well, if you didn't do anything wrong, why didn't you do this before? So I'm curious about that to see how that's going to play out, but I can almost see that's where it's going. So now it's like, if an officer stops you for something minor and they had that ability to give you a leeway on it, now it's probably going to be like, nope, they're not going to give you that leeway, But what's your thought on that? Let me just hear again. This is a debate, conversational piece. I like to engage with you guys. So please drop your comments in the line. And without any further ado, let's jump right back into this. Okay?
After he does hard time in an American jail, guess where he's going? Right back to El Salvador. What do Democrats have to say about this now? They celebrated this guy. They worshiped this guy. They treated him as a hero. Now he's been indicted by a grand jury for committing some of the most heinous crimes I've ever read about. He's going to do hard time in our jails, and then he's going back home where he belongs, to El Salvador.
Here's my worry. In spite of everything that you have accomplished, and you are right in expressing, we've never been able to secure a border this fast. There's never been a more preventable national security disaster like this. But in spite of all of these great efforts in record time, you, the president, Vice President, Kristi Noem, Tom Homan, everybody involved here, I don't know how you find every terrorist. I was asking Dan Bongino about it this week. How do you possibly find people that we don't even know are in this country, the gotaways that got in? We don't know where they came from. 200 countries? I've got to imagine that my prediction, it's a matter of when, not if, and is going to turn out to be right. I mean, I would argue last weekend in Boulder was a terrorist attack. And I think that, you know, we have a million man out.
It was a terrorist attack from a Biden illegal. It was a terrorist attack from a Biden illegal that was given a work permit by Joe Biden.
A million FBI man out?
Yeah, and you see, this is the part that kind of confuses me as well. How do you come over on a visiting visa, right? After your visa is expired or is set to expire, you obtain a work permit. Like, that should be a red flag right there. How do you get approved for a work visa after your visiting visa is expired or is about to expire? Like, that should be a whole bunch of red flags going off. Like, okay, this individual have no intentions of staying. Now, I get it. People want to move on, move to places for better opportunity, you know, things of that nature. But my question is, why weren't they directed to do this the legal and the right way, rather than you come over on a visa and now it's expired, you're like, oh well, I'm going to stay now. You know, that's amazing how that went down.
Hours spent on the border, Stephen?
So you're right. This is the thing that gives me the greatest concern about the future of this country, is the millions of unvetted, unchecked, and just unknown foreign nationals who have been deposited into this country, not to mention the millions more visa overstays embedded into all of our communities, some operating at the direction and control of foreign governments, foreign enemies, foreign terrorist organizations, not to mention the cartels, which have spread so much bloodshed across this hemisphere, that do business with some of our worst adversaries. But it's why, Sean, and I'll say this now, it's why it's so important to pass the president's big, beautiful bill. Because that legislation hires 10,000 new ICE agents to go and find these killers and terrorists. It funds the detention beds we need to keep these people off our streets. It funds the planes we need to fly them back home. It also funds the creation of Homeland Security task forces with FBI, ATF, ICE, Homeland Security investigations, and others to prioritize the disruption and dismantlement of foreign terrorist organizations in our cities. And of course, it funds the entire phase 2 of the Wall project across the entire southern border. That funding and the authorities in this legislation, Sean, are the best chance that we have of giving our president, our commander-in-chief, our leader, the tools that he needs to keep America safe.
You know, and by the way, you're right. The bill has to be passed. Lindsey Graham on my radio show earlier today was very clear. We're not going to stop here. We're going to go back. We're going to look for all the savings we can possibly find. And he said he wants to do not one, but 2 more reconciliation bills as fast as possible. Find money for savings. But we need this money up front. It is imperative for all of the things that you mentioned: securing the border, energy dominance, the next generation of weaponry, and of course, tax cuts for the American people.
Yes.
Stephen Miller, very ambitious agenda, and we got to fight to keep the country safe. Stephen Miller, appreciate it.
Enact the promises President Trump campaigned on, and we will. Thank you, Sean.
And you know, that's why they're saying promise made, promise kept. Like I've said many times before, the Constitution, whether you like it or not, whether it's good or bad. It's straight across the board, right? So the Constitution says A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't say if A, then B, right? Similarly, like I've said before, the Constitution is not a menu. It's not like you can walk into a restaurant and say, hey, can I have a number one, but I would like to substitute this with. No, it's written and it's straight across. Now, I understand, and again, not every undocumented citizen, right, or whatever terminology you want to use for them, is bad. There's, again, even with citizens, you have bad and you have good. Similarly, all walks of life, you're going to have good and bad. Now, but the unfortunate thing is in the United States, it comes down to, we have a problem with people in the country that's undocumented. Now, you cannot just weed them out and say, well, you can stay because this, and you got to go because of that. No, because now you're opening up a whole can of worms that you're not ready for. So again, because of the way that the Constitution is written, and that's our law, you have to go straight across. So it's either A or B. So it's not, if it's A, then you can go with B. No, it's A or B. Clear as day. Okay? What are your thought process on this so far? I'd love to hear it. How do we even begin to undo the damage when the system let monsters in like this? Question to think about. Would you trust this government to protect your family? This isn't just a story, it's a warning. One monster caught, but how many more are still out there in our neighborhoods? Food for thought, folks. Food for thought. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, remember, like, subscribe, and share. Stay informed and stay engaged. Keep your radar locked in right here. Have a good one.